Hi there, I hope you're having a good day. In my previous video, I talked about how to stay positive for your job prospects, and if you're trying to start your own business or if you're trying to switch careers, ways to kind of stay motivated and maintain that enthusiasm for doing it. Now, the way to do that, there's a lot of complex parts to that. And one of the things I wanted to talk about in this video is around finding your drive and identifying what your passions are. And one exercise I use to do this is look at all the things in your life that you happen to be obsessed about, that you're really passionate about. And these are really the things that you keep coming back to for no other reason, that you just kind of like them and you're not quite sure why, but they just really fascinate you. It's a really good exercise to go through to list out what all those things are and then go through the process of questioning, why do you like that thing? Why are you attracted to it? What's behind that? And an important part of that exercise is separating the things you like to do with other people and the things you like to do by yourself. Because often if we like to play sport, or if there's a kind of activity we do like playing computer games or playing music with people, that's really a social activity, and that's always really enjoyable and something we really need to do for human interaction, and that process is really satisfying. But the thing that I'm really interested about is the things that you get interested about on your own. If you're in a bookstore, what's the kind of book that you pull off the shelf? Why are you drawn to that particular topic or that particular field or that particular author? Or if you're in a magazine, why do you stop on a particular story? Or even when you're scrolling through the news, what's something that you happen to be fascinated by that you keep looking at all the time? What are the other kinds of things that are unique to you and your passions and your interests? And we all have those, but it's not often that we go and question, why do we find ourselves drawn to that thing over and over again? And I encourage you to do that, because if you can work out what those things are, you can start to question why you happen to be drawn to them. And I mentioned Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, and one of the reasons that's important is in that book he talks a lot about that core driver, that purpose that you find within yourself. And also Tim Ferriss's book, Tools of Titans, is really fantastic for this as well, because one of the things that Tim Ferriss is really passionate and obsessed about is learning from other people. So on his podcast show, he would interview all these different people, and that particular book is where he sat down for a couple of weeks and wrote out all of the insights and the little gems that he picked up from people from all those podcasts. So in many ways, it's a bit of a shortcut where you can read this one book and save yourself hours and hours and hours of listening to all the podcasts to get just those gems and those little insights about what motivates those people. I think there's about 200 people in the book that he's spoken to. And one thing that stood out for me from that was when he was interviewing Arnold Schwarzenegger. And one of the things I didn't know about him was that Schwarzenegger had managed to make over $1 million in the 80s in the construction industry before he even got his first film role. So he wasn't obsessed trying to look for any possible role as an actor. He could afford to wait until Conan the Barbarian came along, and then Terminator, and that was able to really launch his career as this really iconic actor, and he didn't have to rush and do these tiny little bit parts and these small parts. And I thought that was a really interesting thing, because that gave him enough power, if you like, to have that patience to wait for the right opportunity. So I feel like if you've got it really clear in your mind what your passions are and what you're motivated by, you can not only can you wait for the right opportunity, but it also helps you to identify what it is when it arrives. Because sometimes when we're in the I suppose that bewildering phase of what am I going to do with my time, how am I going to earn money, what job should I do, which is really important because we spend all day every day doing these things, it can be a little bit disconcerting if you haven't quite felt like you've got your exact finger on it. So I find this is a really good exercise to go through. Just identify the most popular brands that you like, that you keep coming back to. Even if you haven't bought anything from that particular brand, why are you obsessed with a particular brand? Why are you obsessed with a particular type of product or style of whatever it might be? A good example I'd want to use is I'm really fascinated by used cars. And part of this is because I always thought buying new cars seemed really silly, because the value pretty much of the car dropped about 30 or 40% as soon as you drove it off the lot. So wouldn't it be more logical to buy a 3 to 7 year old car? You're going to get a much better deal, and there's probably nothing wrong with it. It's still going to be inside its warranty period. So I always like to compare what's the probability of you getting a better deal and having more knowledge than the person selling the car to you. If it's a private person or a car dealer, how can you get more knowledge and how can you get a better deal? But I've probably only owned about 6 or 7 cars in my lifetime, but I would have looked at hundreds of cars online because I'm fascinated about having more knowledge than someone else about what that particular car is good for. And that just, I suppose it's an unusual hobby for me. I like the vicarious nature of imagining what it would be like to drive all those different cars. But if I look at that, it's really about a couple of different factors. Like, I want to get a really good deal. I want to save some money. I want to get really good performance. What's the best value? What's the best and most sporty and high performance vehicle I can get for a great price without having anything to go wrong with it? So I'm wanting to avoid failure, really. So that's a really good thing to identify, that I want more knowledge than someone else. I want to know what does well over time, and I want to avoid it going wrong. So in many ways, I'm actually projecting any of my anxiety around business and about entrepreneurship and around investment opportunities. I'm kind of projecting that onto one narrow industry, which is just vehicles. So one of the ways that I think this process is really interesting is it helps to identify some of the things that motivate you in other fields. So when I think about business, same problem. I want to know what works over time. I want to know what the most high performance thing is in terms of the best value that you can make the most amount of money from this particular kind of investment. And is it going to go wrong over time? How do you avoid failure? And how do you acquire as much knowledge about a particular field so that you have a competitive edge over someone else? So that's an interesting comparison between something I've identified that I'm kind of passionate and obsessive about, and ways that applies to something else. So while you're trying to work out what you'd like to do with your career and where you want to direct it, come back to those passions that you really enjoy and those obsessions that you have, because when you do that, you'll be able to unlock the things that are going to sustain you, that naturally drive you anyway. As soon as you're surfing on the internet or you're reading through a magazine, something will jump out to you that you're attracted to, and that sense of attraction and interest can potentially help to sustain your drive for something over a long period of time. Because whatever you want to do, if it's to go into a new career or start your own business or start your own company, a startup, or whatever it's going to be, it is going to take years to go through that transition and build it up. So it has to be something that's sustainable, that you can really enjoy doing for a long period of time. That kind of momentum that you get from that drive that's already inside you is something really great to identify, because that really helps you as you go forwards. So that's it. I hope that was useful. If you've got an interesting passion or obsession, write it in the comments down below and think about why the reasons are that you might have that particular passion and what the driver behind that could be. I'll be happy to answer some of your questions and provide some feedback. Thanks for watching. See you later.